John Machota in The Athletic that wrote this story, Cowboys to-do list, what still needs to be done. I'm just interested more in that in your thoughts, Brian, but I did want to acknowledge John at least kind of had the idea for the segment. Tell me what you think needs to be done here at these different spots. At quarterback, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Because if this isn't a snapback year for Dak where he gets back to playing at an elite level, then you're going to be in position to draft one. And I think Cooper Rush is fine. Yeah. I guess Nick Foles might be out there, but I don't think it's a big enough upgrade to justify spending anything. Rush just won you a game. I'm looking forward to continuing that relationship again.
Yeah, I think you've been absolutely right about what's going on with Dak. I think it's an evaluation year and a big year for Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy with all that's going on out there with a potential Dan Quinn contract extension that he got from Jerry Jones. Sean Payton's out there. So you're going to evaluate your coaching staff. If it doesn't work out, you probably move on from there. The next coach will have the opportunity to get something out of Dak. If he can't get anything out of Dak, then Dak will probably be shown the ropes, shown the street, whatever you want to say that way. And yeah, I mean, these next couple of years are really important for a lot of people if they want to keep their jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's the thing that, when you have a coaching staff that's maybe in some flux, maybe at the end of it, now you're trying to draft. Mm-hmm. Now you're trying to think, Dan Quinn's out there and McCarthy's out there and everybody's out there picking players. And then you're thinking, well, okay, they pick the players, you draft the players, you bring them in, that's your job. But then all of a sudden, maybe the next group comes in and they're like, well, we didn't like Connor McGovern. And then all of a sudden you got all these players now that you're like, well, we didn't draft these guys. Well, we didn't draft these.
Continuity can make things confusing.
Continuity can make this really, really tough. And that's why the teams that have the continuity are able to have success year in and year out. Mm-hmm. And right now, the Cowboys, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions at the front with the coaches. There's soon to be questions with the quarterback.
There is
if things don't settle in for him. And this is an offensive line that for so many years now we've talked about. They're elite. They're an elite line, but we can't even say that Tyron Smith's great anymore.
Okay, let's jump in there because I think Dak and the O-line, Dak's future success and the O-line are inseparable.
Yeah, I agree.
I think with
Kellen Moore too, maybe.
Yeah. So for me, that's where the needs really start, and I think with the cap space that they have right now, it's clear they don't want to spend any of that in the free agent market.
Right.
So make a trade. I think a lot of people are expecting the money would go to a defensive player, maybe a starting edge or something like that. But, for me, I'm like, who's the best interior offensive lineman that's available right now in any sort of a trade that's about to become some sort of a cap casualty? I think you got to trade for one and then hit at 24, or your offense is going to be in a world of hurt. And by an extension, Dak Prescott. And with so many quarterbacks coming into next year's draft class, Brian,
yep, you're right.
We'll be right into the discussion. Like, should they take one now if they're having a failing season and they're going to pick in the top 10? Or bet on Dak to bring it back. I would really think at that point, if it's going horribly, there would be a strong argument to be made that maybe you could draft one and have him sit behind Dak. And if Dak plays well, you trade him. If Dak doesn't, then you move the rookie in at some point in 2024 or 23. I guess that's the way I'd be. Is that crazy?
No,
I don't think so.
No, not at all. And again, that's going to be if things don't work out for Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore and all. Yeah, they're going to be shown the door. And I think that's something that there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure on the front office for the draft. There's a lot of pressure on the coaches to deliver. A lot of pressure on the quarterback to deliver. A lot of pressure on CeeDee Lamb, to deliver. Yeah. There's a lot of guys that are really, 2022 is playing for their livelihood for 2023. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I'm okay with that because I always talk about the desperate team.
Oh, yeah, they better be desperate now.
Yeah, be desperate. Be a little desperate, take some chances, do some things that you might not, feel a little uncomfortable. And I'm okay with that.
Okay, so I'm going to call my shot here. I don't think they're going to trade for one, but I think they'll use their first two picks on a center and a guard.
Good. Absolutely.
At the very least, two of the first three picks, I think it reminds me of when they needed corners so bad, they let Scandrick and everybody go.
Sure.
And they knew they were going to take two corners, and they took Cheeto and Jordan Lewis.
Sure did.
How could you need offensive linemen so bad? Tyron's getting old. and not make a move in free agency. It's only if you plan to spend a lot of draft capital on it. Yeah. And you're not going to use day 3 picks and dream of making these guys starters immediately.
No.
It can only be on the first 2 days.
Absolutely. This team has proven that plug and play in the first round works. They've got that down. They've got that offensive lineman down in the stack. They've got those right. They've got them sorted out right. Me personally, I love the center from Iowa. I talk about him all the time as how deficient he might be physically, short arms.
How's the depth behind him? Can you get a quality center in round
absolutely.
2?
I think there's a kid, Fortner from Kentucky, that I really, really like. I know there's a kid, Parham from Memphis, but everybody's talking about these centers and stuff like that. And there's the kid from Nebraska that tested really, really well. And watch him play. He doesn't play like a guy that tested really great. That's that Cam Jurgens from Nebraska.
I see him in a lot of mocks.
Yeah, every mock draft has got him, and everybody's mocking him because of the testing.
He mentioned a bunch of times.
Man, he does not play like his testing numbers. I mean, there's nothing fluid or pretty about his game.
You don't want that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a rough and tumble guy when you kind of watch that. But man, they ask him to do things that you would think, oh, well, he's really a good athlete. Doesn't play that way.
You don't want to take interior linemen late in the draft.
No.
You want to take them when you're picking in the 20s.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the rare spots where you can find high quality in the 20s.
Yeah. I just kind of feel like, to me, if you're going to give me a 3rd round center, I would like to take the Luke Fortner kid from Kentucky. He's 6'4", he's 307. I mean, this guy, you talk about an athlete. And I was watching him play against Georgia. It's not easy playing against those heavy 1 techniques, the 3 techniques. I mean, if you get a stalemate with those big old bodies inside with Georgia, you're doing a pretty damn good job. And he was able to kind of come with that, and I was super, super impressed. I mean, he might be light at 307, but he doesn't play light. And I mean light like, he's getting rocked back and knocked back and all that stuff. I mean, he can take care of himself. And you watch him play against Missouri, and he's up the field. He's second level blocking. He's reaching guys to his right, his left. I mean, there was just a lot of positive stuff about him. And I love the athletic ability with this guy. But again, watch him play against Georgia. You'll kind of have a little appreciation of how strong this guy is at 307.
All right, so there's quality. I like that. Kenny in Quinlan says, hell yeah, I'll host with you guys for free. He's in on the truckwreck.com text line. He says he's looking forward to What You Drinking, What You Thinking coming up at 5:30.
He missed last week, didn't he?
Yeah, he did a streak of 68 weeks in a row of What You Drinking and What You Thinking came to an end last week from Kenny and Quinlan. He says he's ready to start a new streak. We'll have to ask him if the day drinking turned into a forgetful 5 o'clock
shots
hour.
of rock and roll tequila instead of 2.
Yeah. Well, shoot, make up for lost time.
Yeah.
Wasn't Stepnoski like Linderbaum?
Yeah, but a lot lighter, actually. Mark was a 282-pound guy. I think with Linderbaum, you're at 296. But yeah, same thing. And if you go back and look at the history of the Packers, Mike McCarthy's played with a light center before as well, and kind of got away.
He's never played with a light center, bro.
Yeah, I mean, the center was light. He maybe not, but the center was light. But that's the thing. I think that, to me, that I have less questions about Linderbaum than I do about Green and the other guards that might be there.
Okay, we're talking about what needs the Cowboys still have and how we would like to see them filled. Up next is wide receiver.
Yeah.
Is it a need? Is it a want right now?
I think it's more of it could be considered a need. But to me, that's this team last year. What did we do? 3 of the best wide receivers we thought in the NFL. The combination. If your coordinator doesn't figure it out, your quarterback doesn't figure it out, doesn't matter if you have 3 of the best wide receivers in the league if they're not getting the ball, or they're not having success. So I kind of am a little bit like people say, well, why would you go ahead and draft? Why would you waste a premium asset on a wide receiver? Yeah, maybe they want to feel like that, they need to replace, they need to make that replacement for Coop. But this draft stretches pretty deep from the 1st to the 2nd and the 3rd rounds for the wide receiver, a wide receiver that can come in, learning curve be small, and then be able to make some plays.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind a day 3 pick. I think between Lamb and Gallup, you've spent enough that you should easily get enough production to win in the passing game.
Sure,
you're giving the tight end $11 million. I think what we saw last year is the offensive resources need to be a little bit more balanced when it comes to the different spots. Okay, at tight end, Schultz, Sprinkle, McKeon, and Ian Bunting.
Yeah, I think that, and this is another, there's not really a first-round tight end, but again, second, third round, I mean, they're stacked in there pretty nicely for you. I'll throw you a name out there. There's a kid named Cole Turner from Nevada. And there's several guys, General Lucius, that there's several tight ends in this thing that are 6'7" guys, 6'6" guys in height. I also heard that Otten, the tight end from Washington, who was banged up a little bit, a guy I really, really like in this draft, he's got one of the 30 visits for the Cowboys. Him and then also Woods, the tight end from Virginia. So they're hunting a couple of tight ends on these 30 visits as well.
Truckwreck.com fan text, the 214. I can't believe the questions about Dak. Before the injury, he was putting up astronomical record-setting numbers and was in the MVP conversation.
He's not playing well right now. I don't know how you can say that. He's really not.
They don't.
And if that's his fault or Kellen Moore's fault or the offensive line's fault, sure. Blame it on all those people. He needs to play better for you. He really, really does. There needs to be a lot less indecision to his game. There was way too much of that at the second half of the year.
Yeah, teams aren't going to let you have a lot of time to not be leading wins and not playing well. And you can. I think the stats, from 2019, from 2020, are way skewed based on being in blowout situations against a horrible division often, and this past year against a horrible schedule. Just watching him play and when he needs to be good, it just wasn't happening enough.
It was not happening enough.
I do agree there was something maybe to the calf injury.
Yep.
Maybe that brings some physicality back to his game, but I don't think you can point to the second half of last year as a sign that he's playing well. To me, it could be the start of significant deterioration. Could be a blip in the radar. That's why the first 4 to 6 games this year are absolutely massive as far as how much faith people are going to have in Dak Prescott. And that's why I think rebuilding the offensive line is super, super important. Defensive line, do they need another end? I don't think you need one. You have enough. Defensive tackle, do they have a one technique?
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that group. It wasn't as near as it could be. Quentin Bohanna was a guy that we kind of thought was a big active guy, and for times he played pretty well. It's some of those guys like Oso Digizua and those guys that they didn't play as well as they needed to play. I mean, it's like they hit the rookie wall.
I want to keep betting on them guys.
Oh, I do too.
No Digizua.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just thinking fat man.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And this draft has some of those guys.
They
have some one techniques in this draft. We talked about Jordan Davis from Georgia. Everybody knows.
I think Mike's going to want to emphasize we want one of those. Does Dan Quinn want one really bad?
Yeah, I think with Dan. I mean, Quentin Bohanna was a 6th-round pick, I believe, last year, and that was a big guy that he went and watched. Keep an eye on Travis Jones from Connecticut. He's a 324-pound guy, and I believe he's going to be a 30-visit guy as well. So they're looking at these. They're looking at some of these big one techniques.
I want one of those guys that's approaching 400. We have some superhumans in this draft, don't we? We got some massive dudes.